this is going to be a tough one. Six months ago, my husband, Kevin, died of colon cancer. He was too young, 49 when he was diagnosed, and 52 when he died. I just turned 51, and I am still alive. I have to remind myself sometimes that I'm still alive. We went through a lot together before he died. We were married for almost 27 years. We lived in 3 different states. We traveled to 5 countries, raised a child. I was so excited when I reached the milestone where I'd spent more of my life married to him than not. And it didn't even occur to me that that ratio might start to go backwards. It's going backwards now. I feel a bit like I'm on a train and just endlessly chugging away from him. And he's standing on a platform back on March 13th, and I am here in September and not able to stop the forward motion. I'm just watching him get smaller and smaller in the distance. People say that grief comes in waves, and that has always felt really trite to me. But when I sit and I watch the ocean, it makes sense. The waves are always rising in the distance and always breaking on the shore, one after another, after another. And they're constant, but they're not consistent. If you watch the surfers in the distance, they'll sit for long minutes just waiting for the one wave that's going to swell above the others and rise higher and travel further and break more spectacularly. And they only sometimes manage to see them coming. For that first month or two after he died, when I cried, I screamed. Like, I would stand under the shower and sob and yell at the universe, at fate, at cancer, even at Kevin sometimes for leaving me. How it wasn't fair, and how I wanted to go back. And mostly just why. Why did you leave me? Why did you take him? Why me? Why him? Why us? At that time, I was also exhausted from the 2 years that we spent fighting the disease, from all of the doctor's appointments and the scans and the hours of chemotherapy and the ever-changing systems, the trips to the emergency room, watching my husband become less and less himself as he was overcome by more and more pain, until by the end he wasn't my partner anymore, even if he was still the love of my life. I cried while I was writing this. I shouldn't be surprised that I'm crying while delivering it too. But at the beginning, I could hardly see the space between the waves. It was like I was standing at the brake line and just being pummeled and drowning. So now, 6 months in, the difference, I guess, is that I've moved ever so slightly closer to the shore. And that tiny bit of distance allows most of the waves to break below my neck instead of over my head. But every now and then, I get hit by a sneaker wave. It's one that I didn't see coming, and it hits hard enough to knock me over. Let me just show you. I filmed this about 2 weeks ago.
I just had a moment of overwhelm, and I grabbed the camera because I guess that's one of my instincts now, to try to document what this feels like. I had to turn on Kevin's phone to look up a contact that he had. And I did it, and I found the contact and sent it off to the person who had asked, and that was fine. And then half an hour later, I was just overcome by him being gone. The smallest things that you don't think are gonna set you off do. And I've been thinking about how we were on the brink of this new life when he got sick. How we just moved to California. We were just coming out of the pandemic. Our son had been just about ready to move out and start his life as a young adult. And all of those things happened. Their son did move out, and the pandemic ended, and life started to get back to normal. And Kevin got sicker and sicker as all of those things were happening. And everything was so good, except for the cancer. He loved his job, he loved his family, he loved me. Everything in life was good. Life was really good, except for the cancer. And now life is still trending towards good. I have so many opportunities and so many. My life would be good right now, but I don't have him. I don't want to be that woman who cries on camera all the time, whose biggest videos are because she's breaking down. But here I am, breaking down. People tell me I'm strong. And you know what? I am. I am strong. I've been through a shit ton. And I'm still here. But I'm here like this.
So when that happens, when a grief wave bowls me over like that, sometimes it's done and over in an hour, and sometimes it takes days or even weeks for me to return to what passes for an even keel these days. Around this anniversary, the 6-month mark, the waves have been coming in higher and closer together. It's almost like I waded out into the depths to meet the anniversary. And I didn't do that on purpose. It just somehow I looked up and this is where I found myself. At the same time, I felt a shift towards remembering him the way he was before he got sick, and mourning the person that he was and the relationship that we had, instead of just his physical presence in my life. And that has brought new pain and new depths of understanding what I've lost, but also a new warmth in remembering those good times. Let me talk about some of the things that help, because, well, I want to be present with my grief journey. I hate that term. But while I want to be present for that, I also want to be present for my life. And there are days where those things feel mutually exclusive, but not always. So first of all, therapy. I started working with a therapist shortly after Kevin was diagnosed in 2021, and I've been with her ever since. At one point, I met with her weekly, and these days it's more like once a month. In the early days after he died, I also spent time talking with the hospice chaplain, with the social worker, with professionals. And I know that it's not always easy to access mental health resources, and it can be especially hard to navigate the system when you're struggling, but it is worth it. The professionals that I've worked with have been able to help me understand which of my reactions were normal and which ones might be cause for concern. And that has been really helpful for me, because for most of us, this level of grief is a once or maybe twice in a lifetime event. But those professionals, they bring the experience of having seen some of the same scenarios over and over again, and they know the patterns. They have an idea of which strategies might be helpful and which might be harmful. And for me, coming into grieving with a mental illness kind of already clouding my perceptions, every other strategy that I have employed has been a supplement to getting therapy. So some of those supplements. Mindfulness. Over the past year, I've done 2 mindfulness training programs, mindful self-compassion and mindfulness-based stress reduction. These are both secular, science-based programs, but I also attend a weekly meditation session that is based on Theravada Buddhism, and each of these has been helpful in its own way. One of the most useful skills that mindfulness has given me through this whole experience is learning how to tune into my body. I have learned that grief sits like a rock in my chest, that anger settles itself in my throat and behind my eyes, fear flashes through me like lightning, and anxiety feels like fear gone solid. Paying attention to those sensations, like really exploring them, understanding their depths, their boundaries, their edges, has made them easier to manage. Another big support has been my friends and family. One of the things that the grief journey has taught me is that I have so many amazing people in my life. I've heard that an experience like this really brings into focus who you can rely on and who you can't, and maybe that's true, but every single person in my inner circle has come through for me in a different way. Some are willing to fly out on a moment's notice. Some are diligent about checking in on me. Some just give me a sense of normalcy. Some are able to handle my emotional overwhelm. Some are my daily chat companions. Some have just the right jokes at just the right time. And most of them fit into multiple of those categories. These people around me are not substitutes for therapy, but learning to rely on them has been a surprising bright side of this whole experience. Another surprising area of support has been art. and specifically sketching. I always wanted to learn how to sketch, and I've never been quite brave enough to do it, but I sat down and made my very first sketch while Kevin was in a chemo session, one of the very early ones where COVID protocols prevented me from being with him. And I discovered that sketching deactivates my perceiving brain and activates my observing brain. In The Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday writes, perceptions are the problem. They give us the information that we don't need exactly at the moment when it would be better to focus on what is immediately in front of us. The observing eye, he says, sees events clear of distractions, exaggerations, and misperceptions. Perceptions can be valuable, and there's a reason why humans evolved to rely on them. But sitting with a pen or a paintbrush and actively working on seeing things as they actually are is a skill that I think has translated from a practice of the hand and eye to something that actually impacts my emotional regulation. And seeing things as they are is a mindfulness skill. It separates what's actually happening in any given moment from the stories that I tell myself about what's happening. And sketching or drawing has really strengthened that skill for me. And finally, I've been actively adding new places and new people to my life. I started 2 new volunteer jobs. I'm taking a watercolor class. The other night I joined a group for a full moon night hike. I'm expanding my world. If I'm being completely honest, sometimes it hurts to do that. Because the first thing I want to do with every new experience is to tell Kevin about it. For so long we were 2 parts of a whole, and one of the joys of my life was sharing it with him and him sharing his with me. I know that I can't live forever on the experiences that we had in our life together. I have to keep learning and keep exploring and keep connecting. And if that means that sometimes I need to come home and sleep for hours after a volunteer shift, which I often do, just to process all of the emotions, or if I only stick one toe outside some weeks and stay in my comfort zone until I'm strong enough to step out again, so be it. I am balancing my long-term mental health and my short-term mental health here. And I'm doing my best to treat myself with kindness throughout that process. So, 6 months in, those are the things I've found helpful, and this is what it's like. If you are watching this because you are going through something similar, I want you to know that your journey might not match mine exactly. In fact, it probably won't. But I hope that you find some common ground and that does maybe you feel a little bit less alone. And if you're watching this just to check in on what's going on with me, or perhaps to get a feeling for what someone you care about might be going through, thank you for your compassion. It means a lot. And I guess until next time, I am wishing you love and joy and all of those good things. And I can't wait to talk to you again.